Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next The Promised Neverland manga review. This one's going to be for the chapters that make up volume 14, chapters 116 to 124. So we're getting close to catching up. There should be I think one more video covering, I suppose, the volume 15 stuff, and then the video after that will be the remaining, I suppose, at that time, like 6 or so chapters, and then we'll be going weekly after that. So let's jump in here. So we ended the last volume with the need to save Chris by infiltrating one of the nearby farms to get medicine. And chapter 116 primarily is just about the setup for this. They sort of just recap what they need to do, but they say that it shouldn't actually take too long. Hayato is actually, very used to kind of doing this before going in to steal stuff and getting back out. Then they figure out, okay, who needs to go? Emma wants to go. Hayato's gonna go, and then Emma's like, actually, Zach, can you come with us? But he says, actually, no, Anna should go because she's the one who is more familiar with medicine. She'll know exactly the correct medicine that will be needed, and that's really nice. It's just this kind of continuing this little thing of that, because Emma has actually been away with, I suppose, the main characters on these missions so often. She hasn't she's kind of forgotten a little bit that, like, the others, especially from, her own siblings from Grace Field, are just as, like, intelligent in a way as them, and they're developing their own sort of specialities. So Anna, obviously, here is the kind of medicine expert here, so that's really nice that we get to see kind of her kind of stand out a little bit more. So she's going to go, and they immediately get there. It's actually really quick paced. I like that this isn't this massive arc of like infiltrating this farm. It's literally just like they go into a secret path to get in there. They've been in there before. We get a sense of how the monitoring station with the demons is working, but that they are spotted fairly early on. So again, there's no kind of need to overly, spend chapters upon chapters of sneaking around and then get caught. Instead, they just get caught fairly early on, and it becomes a little bit of a kind of dash to get out, with Ray and Hayato distracting the guards as Emma and Anna are going to be the ones to actually get the medicine. In chapter 117, that's effectively what happens. We just see them kind of running away from the demons, as Anna is the one to basically tell Emma which of the medicines to get, because there's these really tall shelves. So Emma, as the athletic one, is kind of jumping up to get them as Anna's pointing them out, and then Ray and Hayato are sort of running around the place, distracting everyone. And it's at this point Ray seems to discover something about Hayato, that Hayato can actually run extremely quickly. Not just like he's a fast runner compared to like other reasonably athletic kids. No, there's something special with how quick he is. That's what they get across. And we also continue the idea that like Hayato is really, really frightened in these situations, and his like speed super helps him. But what happens then basically is that Emma actually gets caught by one of the demons and can't escape, and this is when Zazie arrives and just kills these demons in like one amazing movement, one slash, and he's killed all of them. And they know of course who he is, and this is where we just set up the idea that Hayato, Zazie, and Jin are going to be the ones to escort them back to see the boss, who we believe is William Minerva, James Rattray, but we'll see what is revealed in next chapter. So yeah, chapter 118 is the kind of a big one where we get back to the base. Again, they don't spend too long on this in terms of like the stuff with Chris and Dominic, who are the ones who are injured, is kind of done mostly off screen, in the sense of like they don't really focus on them being given medicine or anything like that, but there's a few scenes of dialogue over the next couple of chapters where they just get across the idea that when they got to this place they were looked after well, and they are recovering very well. So that's interesting. They also notice stuff about Zazie in that he obviously wears the bag on his head, but he has this kind of cute little tiger kind of plush that kind of hangs off him, and he doesn't really speak that much, but he's incredibly strong. They get to these giant trees basically after 2 days, and it's revealed that the place where it's like the base of William Minerva is this kind of catacomb of like trees and stuff like that. There's like bridges spanning across it from one side to another, and it creates this effectively like super crazy giant treehouse thing, but it's more of just like a tree base, more or less. It's a town inside trees, like Emma says here, and we see that there's tons of rooms, tons of stairs all over the place. There's like a library with books. There's, you know, a whole kind of kitchen area. Everyone's living well. They encounter the other children that we know from before that they had saved. Everyone is smiling. They're welcoming the escapees back there. And this is when it's said that the boss wants to meet you. And, you know, as you see Emma kind of walking up, she's kind of thinking about this whole time that like so much of their escape has been granted to them basically by Minerva and everything that he did. She's so excited to finally get to meet him. And so she goes in, his face is obscured, you know, it took a while but we finally meet, and it's suddenly this shocked reaction of, it's Norman. And obviously you could have figured it out before with some of the stuff that they'd hinted at, and the fact that Norman was connected to Lambda, the others were connected to Lambda, and then they got across the fact that this is kind of different than Minerva's approach. Something different is going on here. It might be a different person. And it sort of made sense that it probably would be Norman, but there were a lot of hoops to sort of jump through to get to that point. But with the fact that like Adam was out of Lambda and stuff like that, it immediately gave the impression that an escape which Norman was planning at Lambda had already happened. So we jump into chapter 119 at this point, and we just get a couple of pages of a, you know, really nice setup of like Emma dreaming about wishing that there was a world where Norman was alive. She felt so much regret about everything that happened, that, you know, he had to sacrifice himself for them to escape, but that, you know, she got to this point because of that, and now here she gets to reunite with him again. So we get the really nice hug here. Of course, they're kind of older at this point, so it's there's a lot of impact because they have been apart from each other for actually so long. And obviously there's questions going on here, and Norman explains, I was sent to a different farm, I was kept by the demons, and he reveals after a certain amount of time, yeah, he was at Lambda, an experimental site for the children, but that's after he gets introduced to, I suppose, Emma's new family. You know, they're all here, plus everyone from, you know, Goldie Pond. Like, her family has kind of like doubled in size basically. And over the next couple of chapters, I think you definitely get this sense of, you know, Norman with the people that he is with kind of directing the way his sort of attitude has shifted, versus Emma and the people she's met kind of her being able to sort of double down on her idealistic approach, and bringing and kind of having all these people behind her, and then the return of Norman here, and it kind of feels like there is this kind of split attitude towards you know, the correct way to do things. So, you know, it is, I think, very, very interesting. So he meets Ray again, but Ray immediately kind of like slaps him because of, I suppose, Ray was ultimately the one who was completely left out of the escape plan in the end. And I think you can tell there was obviously a little bit of frustration with the fact that, you know, Ray had planned to basically be the one to sacrifice himself to allow the escape to happen, but Norman did it instead and allowed Ray to survive. So I like that, in that, like, that happening kind of allowed Ray to develop. And, you know, he slaps him, but immediately he's the one who hugs both of them. And he says, don't ever try to die again either, stupid Norman. So that's pretty good. And yeah, this is where he kind of explains all of the stuff. You know, he apologizes for not being able to basically warn the shelter about what was coming or anything like that. And they all were like, where were you? You know, it was just a different farm. This is where he explains he was at Lambda 7214, which was an experimental site for the children, and that he escaped. He had found an accomplice, and with the help of a Minerva supporter, he destroyed Lambda and escaped. And the supporter that he met was called Smee, and this character was the same one who gave Sister Krona the pen, which is the one that they have right now. He then later reveals that he was killed as part of, you know, Peter Rattray's purge that wiped everyone out, but Norman got the knowledge and the network from this. And this is where he basically explains that part of how he was able to organize all this stuff is that he took on the role of William Minerva, James Rattray, and gained control of that network, and that's how he was able to do as much as he did here. This, you know, civilization in the trees is part of that support network. So, you know, Norman organized all of this stuff, but a lot of it was already put in place as well. And he just says James Rattray's name was convenient to pull all of these things off. He then reveals to everyone, Ray asked the question, what are you trying to do? Attacking and destroying farms, creating this paradise, what's it for? And he says, in order to answer that, there's something I have to tell you. Do you guys know why demons eat humans? Why they have to eat us? And what exactly the demons are. So that's a great setup at the end of 119 for like a big reveal coming. And that's exactly what chapter 120 is about. It's again this kind of really interesting information dump. Lots of great information here, revealing effectively the core of what demons are to us. So the immediately first page of 120. They can't maintain their shape and form unless they eat humans. They're monsters that don't have shapes. No one knows what they look like at first. Probably something similar to bacteria. Bacteria mostly multiply by binary fission. They don't change, they just increase as clones. Then how did such bacteria evolve and change? The answer was in spontaneous mutation and horizontal transmission. The horizontal transmission of a gene absorbs the genes of other organisms, sometimes transcending species. Their evolution was similar to that. They evolve by eating. They absorb the genes of what they eat and inherit the genes' characteristics. If they eat a bug, they turn into something resembling a bug. If they eat a fish, they turn into something resembling a fish. By repeating that, they obtained various characteristics and evolved into various shapes. And they eventually ate humans, and by doing so acquired the form, high intelligence, language, and culture of humans. Humans became their favorite food, and they rapidly surpassed humans and became humans' natural enemies. And they eventually became known as demons, monsters, devils, or gods. That's how quick their evolution was. But it's revealed that here there was a price for their too fast evolution. There are individual differences, and it's not like they return to their original form, but they cannot maintain their characteristics unless they keep eating. The reason that they eat humans is because unless they do, they can't keep their form or intelligence. After discovering and desiring the human taste, intelligence, and form, they continued eating humans, even after the formation of the promise. That's the real nature of demons. So that is a huge, huge, huge reveal to us. And as they'll get into with the kind of edge cases here later on, there's more to it than just that, but that is the core idea for most demons. And it's very, very interesting because it immediately creates the situation where, they are a sentient species now. And we've seen that from like the demon towns and stuff like that Emma and the others have experienced. And they've gained a certain level of sympathy for, I suppose, most of just the normal people who are just eating to survive. And, some of them may not even know that specific nature about themselves as demons. Just that if they continue to eat, they live like this, and then if you don't, you become a monster. And like they might not want that. That once they've gained this intelligence, they of course wouldn't want to lose it, but to do that, they have to eat humans. So it's this crazy situation of just like that's the way they survive. That's the way they keep from like devolving or just turning into other animals. It's a really, really interesting idea. That's I think changes a lot of things here, because Emma's kind of silent throughout all of this. Norman is speaking a lot. Ray kind of talks at certain points. A lot of the other kids actually say things as well. But Norman explains that as they've continued to eat bad, mass-produced meat for thousands of years, the inferior demons' ability to keep their characteristics has weakened more and more. In the fastest of cases, a demon that doesn't eat a human for more than 6 months would lose its intelligence and return to the wild. And that it is a social issue among demons now about how low quality the kind of meat that most of them are eating are. And I suppose that's why there's so much importance then placed on the higher level farms like Gracefield, and especially the super intelligent kids, because this now explains to us why there is such a significance placed on the brains, and why, the mass-produced ones, they can make as many of them as they want, but that does nothing more than just, give a slight increase to how long they can maintain as a intelligent human. Whereas I suppose the idea is effectively that if they ate like Emma, Ray, or Norman, they would be able to survive for potentially years as an intelligent life form because of how intelligent that person that they ate was. And it's here we get the explanation for the Lambda facilities and stuff like that by using Zazie. It's basically, it's mass-produced meat with better quality. Human meat that demons are demanding, that's practical and satisfying. 5 aristocrats in the Rapture clan joined together using every possible method, including resorting to unscrupulous ways to create them. That's the experimental farm Lambda 7214. So the idea here is that, you know, when we saw the mass-produced farms, all of the kids basically were the exact same. They all had the same level of intelligence, which was effectively nothing. They were nothing more than humans with nothing to them. Whereas the mass-produced experimental farms, the idea is, I suppose, that every human is different in a way, and they kind of genetically modified the humans to, I suppose, maybe just have naturally bigger brains or, you know, different properties to them. It's I suppose this unique thing where like the demons can't like genetically modify themselves because they do that by eating. So their way to modify themselves is to genetically modify their food so that they then change into some aspect of like what these, you know, kids have. And I suppose that's the idea of like, you know, say Hayato, like they did something to him where he was born with crazy legs that allow him to run extremely fast. If someone ate him, he's an intelligent kid. Plus, they'd inherit some nature of the fact that he was extremely fast on his feet. I think that's the idea of it. You know, repeated drugging, experiments, and breeding. During that process, individuals started to show unexpected abnormal developments and irregular growth in muscle and nervous sensation, and that explains the special powers of like the others. You know, Hayato's fast legs, you know, Adam's superhuman strength and fast healing. And, you know, Norman effectively notes here that, you know, this power to outdo the demons is something that was given to us by the demons, because it is effectively the situation where, like, for them to survive in the best way possible, they have to effectively grow humans who are the most intelligent, but in doing so also create the ones that could cause them the most problem. And Norman is now sort of turning this against them. The super-powered humans you've effectively created with powers, I'm turning them against you, and I'm also using the most intelligent humans against you as well. So that's very, very interesting. They're called irregulars, I suppose is the term that's used here to refer to Lambda and the affiliated farms. And yeah, it's just after this he talks about how he wants to create a future where his family, friends, and children could live happily. I want to live with Emma and Ray and everyone else. That's why I thought That's why I thought of what was the best way to obtain it. He already has a plan. The weapons, firepower are already set up. Instead of running away to the human world, this is the most certain and safe method to save all the children. We'll annihilate the demons, make them extinct. The Neverland where we can't become adults is going to end. Let's establish a paradise for all of us in this demon world. And everyone else is happy. There's a little bit of a kind of ominous nature to the fact that Norman said this, and then Emma's kind of shocked by this. And that's kind of the nature of the remaining couple of chapters of this volume, is just dealing with Norman saying this and the full scope of, I suppose, what he's getting at here. Chapter 121 is kind of just a recap of this in a way, because it just covers the other kids being very happy about this. And it's kind of surprising in that I think you as the reader as well as Emma are sort of on the same page about this, of like, annihilate the demons after sort of what we've just learned about their nature, plus seeing their normal towns. You can sort of see the problem there of like, okay, like the problem here isn't like demons, I suppose, inherently. It is more of like this system that is now present on this side of the world where humans are actively helping demons to grow and get better and stuff like that. What's going on there? What is Peter Rattray's kind of end goal at this point in all of this? That sort of thing. What are the higher ups of like demon society kind of doing to kind of create all these problems? But there is this thing of ultimately, how do we fix this? And there's moments here of like even Gilda being like, you know, I'm so glad about this plan. That way you won't have to carry such a huge burden, Emma, and stuff like that. Everyone else seems very, very happy about it. Like Norman comes down, everyone's happy to see him. A lot of the other kids are actually shocked by this because in a way they're so used to seeing Norman as the god, the boss, that seeing him sort of being hugged by all of the kids and, you know, talking to people coming down to see them is not a usual thing. And some of the kids who are siblings ask him, you know, like, are we meant to call you boss or Mr. Minerva or what? But he just reassures them that, you know, I am Norman, call me what you want. And so they jump on him and he falls over because, of course, Norman is still physically weak, despite everything else going on. So this is obviously something that the Grace Field kids know, but no one else really does. So everyone else is a bit shocked by the fact that Norman is still kind of the physically weaker kind of character. So very interesting. They all eat together. Norman, Ray, and Emma sort of fall asleep kind of on top of each other. It's a really nice moment, but it's like a lot has been left unsaid here with everything that's been going on. And that's what the next chapter, 122, covers. You know, Emma wakes up and immediately, you know, talks to Ray about this. We also see Norman and Vincent are talking about the plan. They have to act a little bit quicker because of what happened with them getting spotted at the farm just a few chapters ago. And Norman says, "This revolution must be a bloodless victory. I won't let any blood spill on our side at least." So Norman is obviously very changed because obviously we haven't seen him in so long. So, you know, you can sort of understand, I suppose, part of why he is this way, because he experienced, like, while everyone else escaped and had a certain level of freedom, they encountered problems along the way, of course, as we saw. But Norman went straight into another facility and saw all these other horrors, was closer to the top, and saw more of specifically what is being done on a larger scale to, I suppose, in his mind, like adversely affect humans on this side of things with the promise and stuff like that. So because of, I suppose, his experience being part of this other farm, his other family, in the same way that Emma has another section of her family now as well, that being these like irregulars and his kind of lieutenants here, they kind of bring out this other side of Norman because he kind of experienced almost even more hardship on his section of the journey that we haven't seen. So we can see he's sort of become a little bit more ruthless, and that's why his plan is to eradicate demons and just get rid of them, because, you know, in his mind, his interpretation of their backstory is kind of like, they only have intelligence because of us, so they don't like deserve to keep it necessarily, especially because of what they've done. And he, I suppose, hasn't experienced any demon worth caring about, whereas Emma and the others kind of have. And that's the sort of difference in perspective here. And the reason, I suppose, you can sort of see some like villainous aspects, I suppose, potentially to what Norman is doing here, is because while he wants to help things, he wants to help things by effectively eradicating one species, whereas I think Emma is kind of like, if there's any way at all possible to do this with no bloodshed whatsoever on either side, that is the best way to do things. And that was the whole Seven Walls plan, which they, in the previous chapters, sort of were like, Norman's plan is actually a little bit better because we don't actually know the full specifics of the Seven Walls and how it could happen or not. Because the way they're talking about things is that, like, effectively, now the Seven Walls plan kind of won't really work, because if demons need to eat humans, how do we ever get around that problem? Because either way, we're trying to get to a situation where we save all of the humans from being eaten, but demons need humans to be as they are. So what do we do? And that's the problem. And so this is where we get Emma and Ray talking, and what I like about it is that Ray just comes out and says it. You don't actually want what Norman wants, do you? It's not the future that you want. And Emma just comes out and says, no, it's not. Something's wrong with me. I understand Norman's feelings that he's right and why everyone is so happy, but I don't want to kill the demons. She says, I know it's weird, everyone will be happy, this is happiness, but I also want happiness for the demons. Everyone was just thinking about themselves. They were happy because they care for me. But I want to take a path that would put everyone in greater danger. I hate myself for that. I don't want to be eaten. I don't want them to be eaten. I don't want anyone to get shipped out or hunted. They're our enemy. But then I think, what's the difference between the demons and us? The demons also have friends and family. They think, laugh, and live just like us. But they eat what they eat are humans, and I absolutely don't want that. But the demons are just doing what we're doing in order to live. They're just eating. Just because they're our enemy, does that mean we should eradicate them? Even if we hate or fear them, isn't there an option besides annihilation? Also, Mujika is my friend. I don't want to eliminate her race. And she basically gets across that the seven walls idea won't even work. I don't know what I should do. She wants a different way, but there really isn't one. What should she do? So it's this real crisis of confidence towards the end of this volume here. It's an idea that, like everyone else seems to support, it seems to be the way to go about things, but Emma especially has developed this perspective where it's just not something she can be fully on board with. She understands the perspective Norman's coming at it from, but it's not her perspective. But she can't really keep to the sort of ideal that she wants, because her plan also would eventually end up with the demons not being able to eat humans. So, how does she get, I suppose, everything that she wants? And that's the problem. So Ray reveals in the next chapter that he doesn't, he agrees with it as well. Like he also, I suppose, feels similarly that he doesn't want to annihilate demons, but that the Seven Walls plan is also at a standstill. The demons are annihilated either way. If they just destroy all the farms or they make a new promise, the goal that they want results in that. So that's the problem. He's kind of like, for now, there's nothing we can do. But that he basically just says, you need to talk to Norman about this. When I mentioned it, your feelings about this situation came out immediately. You have to be open about this and let Norman know, because it's a crucial decision. You have to make it clear how you feel about it. It's a nice scene of like Ray being the one to sort of keep Emma's spirits up while sort of still being his sort of calculating self, but being a little bit more like Emma in this situation, agreeing with her, but wanting to, her to kind of solve this herself with Norman. So, he also then at the end says, first, a specific strategy. Depending on that, the possibility of causing a war might not be zero. We should confirm that. And for us, there's also them on our mind, Sanju and Mujika. Those two haven't eaten humans. It's weird. Unless they eat humans, they can't keep their form or intelligent. But Sanju and Mujika were in human form and intelligent. And though they inherit the characteristics of what they eat, those two didn't change their form or appearance, whether they ate birds or fish. I wonder what that means. Does it take a long time to change after they eat something? And it's like, no, that wouldn't explain why they have a human form when they haven't eaten humans. So Sanju and Mujika are exceptions who can maintain a human form without human form and intelligence without eating humans. And it immediately comes up, if all of the demons were like them, that would solve the problem. So the idea is then to return our focus to these two characters who don't eat humans to figure out things, basically. So that's very, very interesting. Especially, I think going back as far as that, I think the idea was that, Sanju maybe in the past had eaten humans, or wants to get back to a way where they can hunt humans in an honest way, like it was all those years ago. But it seems like the idea is that Mujika has actually just never eaten a human, full stop. So that is very interesting. And she's kind of like, it's just wishful thinking for a way for humans and demons to coexist. And they're immediately like, do you think Norman knows about Mujika and Sanju? But if he doesn't, that would be bad, and we need to tell him to immediately think about this, because if the assumption is true, Mujika and Sanju are exceptions who can retain their traits, we have to find out how many of those exceptions exist. If there are a lot, and those demons want to eat humans, so even if we destroy the farms, they won't degenerate. They'll still be a threat to humans. Norman's plan will fall apart from the beginning. On the other hand, if Norman knows about them, we might be able to ask why such exceptions exist. So they're actually presenting a sort of negative point to this, of like, if they point out this to Norman, and he is really just lost in wanting to destroy the demons, then all of a sudden they're telling him about people who will just, like, he will want to kill from the get-go, because it counters the way that he wants to actually go about taking out the demons. But if he does know about it, then there maybe is a hope in that they can use that method of how they maintain their form to, change everything. So the chance, is 1 in a billion, but they need to go now and tell Norman about Mujika, Sanju, and Emma's doubts, of course. So they owe it to them. It's a really nice conversation. They go to the door. When they go inside, it's like Norman's lieutenants that are present there. So these are these characters who I think we get to meet in the next chapter. Is it? Yeah. So yeah, we meet Sislo, Barbara, Vincent's in here as well. And effectively they talk to these 3 characters about things. They want to know about Norman, what he was like from before, and they give their perspective on what Norman is like now. And what this chapter I think mainly gets across is the idea that Norman has not become a villain. He is a little bit more serious now and sort of focused and has his plan, but that he still cares about, people and things. And so I think they're leaving it open that, like, Norman's mind, like, can be changed. There is still a chance to resolve things without just needing the pure annihilation. That, Norman hasn't lost it, basically, I suppose, is the idea. Whereas the impression you get over the course of this chapter is that his lieutenant characters here sort of have. They really are crazy in their hatred for demons, especially someone like Barbara, where she's admitted, like, that she, eats demons herself and stuff like that. And they get very angry when it seems like Emma isn't being fully on board with the plan. But, it's stopped before this happens. And this is when it's revealed, Vincent says, either way it's too late, everything is fine, there's no change. Boss expedited the plan and started the operation this morning. Even if we went after him now, we won't make it. By the time he comes back, no one can stop it. You said he was out. Where did Norman go? He went to see one of the pawns. And we see the last page of this volume is Norman and Zazie going in to this kind of group of demons, saying that I came to officially form an alliance. Let's work together to destroy this world. So the plan is in motion. They'll get to talk to Norman, but it will only be after he's come back. So it's setting up this other kind of timeline of things. Of Norman has this plan that is going to lead to the destruction of every farm, which will eventually lead to destruction of all demons. Can anything be done to stop this before it happens? So, very interesting volume, I think, definitely. The highlight, of course, is, I suppose, the return of Norman into the story, and the fact that he is not just, happily reunited with everyone and they're all agreeing on things. We haven't had the serious conversation yet between Ray, Norman, and Emma about things. We're going to get it, but for now, the impression that we have is that Norman is very devoted to this plan, and that it comes from this perspective of he has kind of had like this harder time of it. Norman, in a way, not having Emma around him has made him lose sort of his sense of maybe idealism. And because he hasn't had the same journey as the other characters, he doesn't have the good perspective of the demons. He hasn't met Sanju and Mujika. He doesn't know, I suppose, he doesn't have that sympathy for the, just plain demon civilization. He only sees, I suppose, the higher ups, the demons who are really taking advantage and kind of benefiting from everything that's happening. So I definitely like that. It's such a kind of interesting twist of like the return of a character like this, it hasn't gone entirely to plan. He's still the same character that he was, but an aspect of him is different. He has this sort of, more serious, in a way darker approach to things, and it directly opposes like Emma's view on demons, because when we left them, they also had the same rough view on demons, because in the first arc we didn't know anything about demons, so they all just kind of felt that they were the enemies and that was it. During the journey with Emma, she's developed into caring about them now, where she doesn't want to annihilate them. Norman's separate journey has led him to kind of double down on the fact that they need to be taken care of and gotten rid of. And I like that idea that the trio being separated, and you have Ray and Emma on one side, Norman on the other, because of their separate kind of paths. And I think that works really, really well, and their conversation when they eventually have it is going to be really, really interesting. But yeah, that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.